Here we go. Last we learned in the Sukka, we were surrounded by mitzvah, and or at least we're still learning in a place of kedusha. So we're in a Beit Knesset. Okay, it's also good. Last we learned about the mitzvah of Arava. The last thing we saw about the mitzvah of Arava was a series of Drashot about a pasuk that is hard to understand. The pasuk that is Isu Chag Bavatim Adkarnon Mizbeach, right? That ends with the words Isu Chag Bavatim Adkarnon Mizbeach. I'm on Mem Hey Amud Bet. So the bottom of Mem Hey Amud Aleph was a number of Drashot to try to show that there's something here. The last source, Rabbi Abahu, said that there's a pasuk to show us that we need to have the arava, the massive arava that are 11 amot high, leaning over the mizbeach. We talked about some of the reality of the fact that the mizbeach was staggered, so it was narrower, higher up, and therefore there was a rise over run kind of issue. So we realized, the Gemara proved essentially that the aravot were on the yesod, one amma off the ground. This we saw last time's kind of review, but as the Gemara is associative, it moves off into drashot about this last phrase, Isru Chag Bavatim Adkarnon Mizbeach, tying the Chag, sounds like the Korban Chagiga, to the corners of the Mizbeach. We never tie the Korban to the Mizbeach. So what is it referring to? So different options. One is that it has to do with the Arava that's hanging over. Rabbi Lazar says anyone who takes a lulav and the lulav is tied up and has a hadas, and the hadas has its leaves that are plated. They're one on top of the other overlaid. So that's like you built a Mizbeach and you're makriv a Korban. Another parallel between the Daled Minim and a Korban, right? We talked about this many times. The Korban, the lulav, the Daled Minim, I call it lulav, but I mean all four species together, is something related to ritzui, related to an avoda. It goes around the Mizbeach. It's all different examples. Here's another one based on the particular top of Mem Hamud Bet. Another one came to us. Amar Rabbi Yirmiyah, Mishum Rishum Bayachai. It's the end of the first line in Mem Hamud Bet. Amar Rabbi Yirmiyah, Mishum Rishum Bayachai. Rabbi Yochanan, Mishum Rabbi Shimon Hamachozi. Mishum Rabbi Yochanan Hamachoti. So what is that? What is their drasha? Kol ha'osa isur l'chag, and isur here doesn't mean a prohibition, but it means something that is unifying. Le'asur, something to tie something up, to sew it up. So kol ha'osa isur l'chag, b'achilu shtia. You sew it up by eating and drinking a lot. I had a big kiyum in that. I don't know about the rest of you on Sukkot, big kiyum, b'chila and shtia, baruch Hashem. So malal v'kalatu ki'ilu bana mizbeach v'ikar l'korban. Again, the eating itself is Isru Chag ba'avotim adkarnon hamizbeach. It's like you related, somehow you attached yourself to the mizbeach, and you made it yourself and your action like a korban. If you look at Rashi on the second to last of the wide lines of Rashi, Isur l'chag aguda l'chag, a unity in the chag through achila and ushtia, achila ushtia. Shekori l'chag oneg b'machal u'mishteh. So some say it refers to on the Yom Tov, that you delighted in it, you're eating, you're drinking, etc. Some say it's the day after Yom Tov. You sewed it up by saying after Yom Tov, like I carried the Yom Tov with me. That's what we refer to as, that's what Isru Chag is. The words Isru Chag, that's what it means. Not tying up, it's tying up in the way that like Ne'ilah is the end of Yom Kippur or a fast day. Ne'ilah, lock it in. Isru Chag, we're sewing the whole thing up. So Yesh Omrim, it's the Yom Shlach Chag. What's ba'avotim? The avotim is behemot avot, milashon, something av, is something thick. Ushmeinot, they're thick, they're portly, they're fat. So fattened animals. So okay. So that was a drasha, and having cited, and here's the associative principle, having cited a drasha about Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, now comes another drasha that has to do with Rabbi Yirmiyah in the name of Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai. So Amar Chizkiah, Amar Rabbi Yirmiyah, Mishum Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai. You see that? Okay. Kol mitzvot kulan ein adam yotzei behen ela derech gedilatan. All the mitzvot, if you want to fulfill them, has to be in the way that they grow. The Rashi points out, what is an example of this mitzvah? Kol mitzvot, the karshia mishkan, the amudim, the pillars, and the lulav, and the hadas, and the arava. They have to be in the way that they grew. All the mitzvot. He meant, in other words, mitzvot associated with the Mishkan, the Mikdash, those kinds of mitzvot, and things having to do with the Daled Minim. But it doesn't refer to everything else in Judaism has to be derech gedilatan. in the Shibole Haleket, 14th century, 13th century, Rabbeinu Tzidkiya Harofe, Italy. He writes in the Shibole Haleket, he quotes from Rabbeinu Colonimus, a little bit of history. The Colonimus family is the first family of Ashkenaz, as far as we know, like the root family. And they came to Ashkenaz, to Germany, from Lucca or Lucca, Italy. So there's roots in Italy. So the Shibbolei Haleket quotes Masorah from Rabbeinu Colonimus that if you cut wood for your sukkah walls, so you may have to make sure that you cut it so that the bottom part, the part that was closer to the trunk, is on the ground. And so the wood for your sukkah has to be in that order. So the Shibbolei Haleket kind of says, this isn't really li'ikuva. It's not like if you didn't do this, you're not yotze the mitzvah, but it's mitzvah and a muvchar to do this. So you have another source I saw in this beautiful anthology in the Masifta Gemara, quotes from the Sefer Yichusei Tanaim V'Amoraim, that someone wanted to argue that when you make the bracha Borein Minei B'Samim on Motzei Shabbat, you have to hold the cloves in the direction they grow. Or if you make Borei Atzei B'Samim with the Hadas, hold it in that direction as well. The Sfad Emet pushed this whole thing by the wayside. He pointed out that even in the Mishkan, where there were Atzei Shitim Omdim for the Krashim, there was also wood building a shulchan and wood that built the aron, and that wood was certainly not in the right. It was going sideways. Mm-hmm. So he says, you see, even in the Mishkan, the Karshia Mishkan was an issue. The Karshia Mishkan, but you're not going to start arguing everything else. Also, to be derech kedilatan, your tefillin has to be derech kedilatan. You don't even know how to where does it begin and end? Okay, but I point this out because just in Rashi here, at least Rashi localizes it, drawing another parallel between something about the Mishkan, its Krashim, meaning the Beit Avodah, the place of serving Hashem, and the Daled Minim, something about Sukkot. The Rabbeinu Colonimus wanted to extend it, maybe it has to do with the walls of the Sukkah, which would fit very beautifully with the idea of this walls of your Sukkah. You're building like a Mishkan for Hashem, the dimensions, etc. We talked about this a few times, right? Many times, in fact, all these parallels. Practically, not really, right?
Just referring to vertical rather than horizontal.
But yeah, maybe, but yeah, maybe. I don't know. Again, I don't know who's makbid to have the besamim. Like if you take the Sfardim, use twigs from Hadassim, that they're makbid, they have to hold it up the right way. Look at that. Mark had a question.
Rabbi, but we do use this concept with the etrog in making the brach on the Daled Minim, right?
Yeah, it's part of the Daled Minim.
So yet we still pick it out. There must be something to it because we do use it
for the Daled Minim.
Right, but you say if it applies there, it could apply elsewhere. Meaning,
you're right.
So you can't just say, okay, unless there's a reason why it would apply for the etrog and not other naturally grown things that are held.
So you are right, but this was all related again to the theme. The Daled Minim have something special about them that connects them to the world of Mishkan and Mizbeach and Ritzui, right? Yeah, the orange is to be held in that direction, but you could argue that doesn't really apply because it's not a mitzvah to pick it up. Well, how did we get to the issue of the Daled Minim, with the upside down? You remember we had the problem of mida'agbe anafakbe. As soon as you lift it up, you're already yotze the mitzvah. So then I said, so then you know what you do? Before you pick it up, you should have negative kavana. Have in mind, I'm picking up my etrog now, but I'm not going to have in mind to be yotze the mitzvah. But Tosfot had pointed out, but you're going to forget, and Stam, you're going to pick it up. And the truth is, there's a whole discussion about how much kavana you're going to need altogether. And mida'agbe nafakbe, as soon as you lift it up, you yotze the mitzvah. So what are we going to do? Oh, turn it upside down. That's where the idea of turning it upside down came from. Is if we turn it upside down, we're showing in a very graphic way, we're not really picking it up. You follow? In other words, we're like more makbid about it there to try to avoid being in a circumstance where we actually fulfill the mitzvah. If I was a sharper man and had more brain cells, I used to be able to tell you, can't anymore. But Tosfot mid'agbe nafakbe should be in Parak Gimel, but I don't know. I shouldn't spend much more time on it. I thought it was in the top of the Amud, but now I don't remember. Matana Amanat Chetavzir. Everyone remembers this line, yeah. But you turn it. That's what we do practically. We turn the etrog upside down when we lift it. But Mark, to your point, the idea here is that the reality of a kiyum, of a mitzvah in general is not really derech gedilatan. Rashi is like telling us it's these mitzvahs as we derech gedilatan. Not every single thing. As the Sfat Emet pointed out, Karshia Mishkan were this way, but the Aron was this way, right? So okay, is the handling or the picking up the mitzvah? Yeah, that's a fair point. It's a fair point. Again, but the question would be, no, that's what he said before. Yeah, orange. Yeah, but besamim, it's not really about it's about getting the smell from it, right? So yeah, okay. I don't know. I'm about to give up, but after this year, I'll find me the Agbe Nafakbe, and I can't think straight now. I got to go back to our sugya because we have other mind-boggling things to say. You're probably right. You probably just saw it. No, we need the part about turning it up, picking it upside down though. It's probably in the section in Parag Gimel where it talks about the etrog, right? About the etrog hagazel, etc., and the igud and the picking up. No, it's probably the picking up actually. Okay, I don't spend more time on it now. Hopefully you remember it. If not, and we'll have to get to it another time. We'll go back to our Gemara. Yeah, Memham with that. The Gemara goes as follows. Since it quoted a memra of Rabbi Yirmiyah Mishum, Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, now it got into this thing. We also learn that the fact that the Torah tells you about the Atzei Shitim, the acacia wood, that they're standing up, means they're standing the way that they grew. Davar acher, another way of explaining these words, omdim shema amidin et sipuyan, means that they're standing, means they are holding up their plating of gold that's on them, as opposed to the plating of gold being an independent layer standing next to it. It's actually attached to it. Davar acher, another idea, omdim means they're standing. Standing, not amdu, but omdim. Now, right now, when we're reading the Torah, right now when we're sitting here learning, always. Shema Tomar Avad Sivram Batel Sikuyan, lest you think that once the Ol Moed was put on the side, it's over. Misha Nignas Ol Moed, says Rashi, Batalo Olamit, or Sikuyam Tochaltam Umabatam, Habetna Istache Ke'an Lishmaya, meaning, go look, meaning that their vision for the future is gone. Talmud Lomar, Atze Shitim Omdim, She'omdim Le'olam Le'omei Olamim. They're standing now and they're standing forever. Where are they standing forever? They're nignazu and they're standing. Right? So different mafarshim and different ideas about what this could mean. It seems like a rather mystical idea. Where is it standing? In Shamayim and somewhere else? I don't know. So the Mishkan we don't really have. And the Mishkan was hidden away, essentially. The walls were hidden away. Right? So Mishkan Shiloh was destroyed, but that was already not with the crushing. The Mishkan Shiloh was built with stone walls and still with the canopied tent. When the enemy came, they destroyed it. Someone in our show, without mentioning names, don't know if they want to be identified, was not so long ago in Shiloh, and came back and said, Rabbi, gave a drasha about Mishkan Shiloh, special it is to go there. We went, it was amazing. We saw the ruins, we went to the visitor center, amazing. I don't want to say who, but that's the idea. I've never been, so I'd like to go one day. Amir Tashem. Larry, you have a question? Larry's a question.
Sorry.
What? Well, where have you been?
Yeah.
Oh, I'd love to go. It's beautiful. You were there also?
You can see, at least most of the pottery.
Yeah, on all the hills, right? The broken pottery, amazing. It's amazing. Yeah, you had to break it there because you can't take it with you. Amazing. Has to be within sight. Amazing. Okay, Larry, go ahead, please. Question.
I'm sorry, I didn't understand shot of Sipui. I know it means coated, plated, but I didn't understand what you said.
I can hardly hear you, Larry. I'm sorry. I heard Mark very clearly.
I'm sorry. I did not understand what you said about Sipui. I know what it means, but I didn't understand shot.
The Ma'amidin, Atzishitim Omdim was read as Ma'amidin. And it's not that it's standing, but it's holding something up. What is it holding up? It's holding up the gold that is overlaid over it. So it wasn't that the gold was liquid and they poured it or they dipped the crushing into gold. It's that they attached gold plates onto it and they nailed them in with very small nails. I don't know, whatever they used over there to attach the gold layer onto the wood. So you should know the gold is held up by the wood.
Okay, fine. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. So this drasha, sorry.
It's held by friction. It's,
Yeah.
a little bit of
But the friction is
kicking away.
it's held on to the wood. That's all. Now, already here, Rashi was keying us into the fact that this drasha, though it was really a very generalized drasha, kol hamitzvot, it really was specific to lulav, etrog, dasim, arava. That's something to do with daled minim, etc. But now, as is the associative way of Shas, now that this has been quoted, so we have a few more quotations of things that have to do with Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, and it's hard to know if and how they may or may not be related to Masechet Sukkah. I don't really understand them. Let me say it at the outset. So if you pepper me with questions, you'll soon discover I don't know what I'm talking about. I don't understand what's going on in this Gemara. It's just very hard to understand. You'll see. You'll see. So it's not a failure of language. It's a failure of the concept. On my part, I just Amar Chizkiya, Amar Rabbi Yirmiyah, Mishum Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai. Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai said, "Yachol ani liftor et kol haolam kulo min hadin miyom shenivreti ad ata." I can bring exemption to the entire world from its judgment from the time that I was created until right now. V'ilmale Elazar, it should be Elazar really, not his name wasn't Eliezer the son, but Elazar. V'ilmale Elazar b'ni imi, if not from with my son, miyom shnivra olam vad achshav. It would be even it would be even from the time of the creation. If it's me and my son teamed up, so until now, from creation until this moment, everything would be somehow forgiven. I'd get everyone off the hook from din. We'll see Rashi and Rabbeinu Chanan in a minute. And then there's a third one, V'ilmale Yotam ben Uziyahu imanu, and if we put the third person with us, Yotam, king of Yehuda, son of Uziyahu, king of Yehuda, if we put him with us, it would be Miyom Shnivra Olam Ad Sofo. It would be from the beginning of the world until the end of the world. It's very hard to understand what the concept is here. I tell you straight away, I don't really understand it. If you look at Rashi, Rashi says, Liftor bizchuti ani sovel kol avonoteyam upotran min hadin. In my merit, I would take upon myself all of their sins and get everyone out of judgment. You know why? Because I have so many merits. Some of them Mepharshim say because of the 13 years, 12 plus 1 years that he and his son spent in the cave, they suffered such privations that like they earned credits of some sort. I said at the beginning, again, I don't really understand it. Yes, Judah.
This is a dangerous concept because it's a Christian concept.
Like I just said, I don't understand it.
Unload the averot on somebody who will then nullify them.
Right. So I thought a lot about that before this year, and I wasn't going to bring that up, but I figured it's kind of the elephant in the room. I think what's interesting is that Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai says I could have done that, but I didn't do that. The idea that the death of a tzaddik is mechaper is a Jewish concept.
Right.
The Jewish people created a new religion, lo aleinu. They knew Judaism backwards and forwards, inside and out, and they did whatever they could to try to attract as many followers to the Hevel Varik that they wanted to spawn. So how do they do that? They make sure it's familiar to people. Now Rashbi lives well after the death of Oto Ha'ish, but Rashbi is around at the time of the promulgation of said religion. I think it's telling that Rashbi was, in certain ways, he was a very mystical figure, but he was not a Mashiach Sheker. He was not declared to be a Mashiach. He's a Talmud of Rabbi Akiva. And unlike Rabbi Akiva, who we have great veneration for as Klal Yisrael, of course, 100%. But Rabbi Akiva made a tragic error. The Rambam speaks about it. The Gemara speaks about it. The Rabbi Akiva thought that Bar Kochva was going to be Mashiach, and he was wrong. He got the name. Took on the name Bar Kochva was Bar Kuziba. In the end, it was false. It didn't work. Which is not to say Bar Kochva wasn't great in his own right. Rabbi Akiva thought he was Mashiach. There's a reason why he thought that. But isn't it fascinating that the Talmud of Rabbi Akiva, Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, is announcing in a Gemara that really either he and his son, or he and his son and a king from Yehuda, they could have gotten everybody off the hook. They didn't get everyone off the hook, but they could have. That's if you use Rashi's reading of it. The Rabbeinu Hananel had a different rendering. Okay? I admit to you, though, I don't really understand this. And Rashbi, I mean, is a great tzaddik. he must be a great anav. What does he mean? He must be a very humble person if he's such a great person. But he's announcing, I could have gotten everybody off the hook. Now, is he saying I'm so great, or is he saying I suffered so much? I don't know. Rabbeinu Hananel has another take on this. If you look on the margin, right-hand side in my Gemara, if you see the outer margin, you'll find that the Rabbeinu Hananel had another idea, and that is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 lines into Rabbeinu Hananel. If you don't have it, I'm happy to read it to you. Rashbi haya ba me'ara yud gimel shana v'nir'eh lo b'derech marot elokim godel kvodo v'hayder be'atzmo shu chasid gadol. For the 13 years that Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai spent in the cave, so he was shown through divine heavenly visions the greatness of his own stature, basically. He knew it. So he knew of himself that he was a great pious person. He wouldn't have said it himself, but these mystical visions told him so. So he would say, I could save the world, not from punishment and relieving them of their sins, Judah, not like Rashi had said, but rather I could save the world like the tzaddikim that weren't found in Sdom, but I am one of those people who actually could have been one of the tzaddikim over there to save the world. Im emtza sham kach v'kach tzaddikim. V'nasati l'chol hamakom ba'avuram miyom shenivreti ad achshav. V'nasati, excuse me, l'chol hamakom ba'avuram miyom shenivreti ad achshav. Klamar bizchuti yitkaleim ha'olam. I know that the world continues to exist. Again, I don't know what to do with the humility of Rishon Bar Yochai, but Rabbeinu Hananel's take, there are people who hold up the world. In their merit, does the world not get destroyed? There are such people. He's one of them. So he says, and I knew that. How did I know? Because I spent 13 years in the cave. And the Kodesh Baruch Hu told me, in my merit, the world will be held up. And God will hold up the world, and he will not destroy the world on my account. Now let's press pause here. Rashbi was in a cave for 13 years. 12 of those years he's in a cave because he is a fugitive, because he's living at the lowest moment, probably, certainly to that point in Jewish history. If you say things crested at the Bayit Rishon, the low point after that is certainly the time of Rabbi Akiva, and in the wake of Rabbi Akiva's death, that's in the aftermath of that. Rabbi Akiva loses his students. And then he gets smicha to 5 people. Rashbi is one of them. Rabbi Akiva Nabach was murdered. And then Rashbi had to go hide shortly thereafter. He spends all this time in a cave. It's hiding. So he's gone from the scene. So Kadosh Baruch Hu tells him, the world's being held up because of you, i.e., there are very few tributaries left of Torah in the world, but you're one of them. Don't take it lightly. In other words, the Rabbeinu Hananel's read of it is not, I could get everyone off from their actions. And to me, by the way, the most challenging one to try to figure out is, and if we brought with us Yotam ben Uziyahu, so then till the end of the world, that until then I could say, okay, he's a tzaddik, mate of the tzaddik is mechaper. But to Judah's point, as soon as you throw in, and also to the end of the world of the future, but Rabbeinu Hananel says, no, in the merit of the reality that there is a Rashbi. According to the tradition, of course, Rashbi is also involved in a Gilui Eliyahu. He has some kind of revelation, Eliyahu Navi, right? Over and over again, right? The Zohar HaKadosh is in some way from the Rashbi, in whole or in part, or in a prototypical version of it that's expounded upon later by the Rishonim, right? It's Sitrei Torah, right? It's Lag BaOmer, all these different things. So maybe, according to Rabbeinu Hananel, it's like there was this cosmic element. If you keep going in the story of Rabbeinu Hananel, he writes the following. He writes, Kilomar, Shalote Klai Kigon Hamabul, Shaya B'chol HaOlam, Kinish Brash Lamala. Oh, and I have a Dvar Torah for Parshat Noach. Ready. Good. Yeah, you amaze your friend to the table. Parshat Noach. Anyone have Dvar Torah? Reminds me of Rabbeinu Hananel, Daf Mem Hey in Sukka. What? Yeah, Rabbeinu Hananel. Aren't you familiar with it? No, I hadn't learned that one. Right? So it's right here. Right? So in the Mabul, there wasn't tzaddik. There were a number of tzaddikim. There weren't enough tzaddikim. And the world did not continue. Yeah. So Kinish Barash and Lamal, the Lamali Yotam. So what's that? V'lama Yotam says that Ben Chananel Fishnit Barerlo, Kilo Kibel Mizchuyotav Ba'olam Hazeh Klum. Shekol tzaddikim Kiblim Ba'olam Hazeh Me'ain hashamur lahen la'olam haba, v'Shimon u'beno v'yotam lo kiblu b'olam hazeh. None of those three, that's what unites them. None of those three got any of their reward in olam hazeh. They lived lives of suffering, privation, etc. Yotam as well is a son of a father who was a king, but who was stricken with tzarat that he could not eradicate, and he was essentially therefore cast aside. So leficha hayta lahem zechut gedola misharat tzadikim. So he had more merit than everybody else, right? And it's interesting, by the way, that what another piece that unites these three people is Shimon, Rishon Bar Yochai, and his son Rebbe Lazar. It's a father-son dyad, and Yotam is also a son of a father, right? Where there's some kind of connection there. Rashi. That's Rashi. Look at Rashi, right? He was the regent, exactly. Benny got it. Because you know your Tanakh backwards and forwards. The regent. Look at Rashi. Yotam ben Uziyahu, right? Rashi writes, Tzadik hayav ve'anav yoter mishar malachim. He was more humble than the rest of the kings. V'zacha b'kibud aviv. His merit was in kibud av. Ve'alav nar ben yichaved av. About him was it said, a son gives honor to his father. Shekol yom shay aviv mitzora v'hu haya shofet am haaretz. All the time that his father was a Metzora. By the time he came Metzora, was for the rest of his life, actually. So that he would act as the regent. He was the judge, the justice, the magistrate with the Am Haaretz, right? All the people who would come. Kirichtiv, v'yotam, shofet, etc. Lo natal alav keter malchut b'chayav. He didn't assume the royal raiments. He didn't take on the crown. He didn't say he was the king, but rather b'chol dinin shayadan omran b'shem aviv. He gave his father credit. He respected his father, even though his father was a has-been in a certain way. He was never coming back because he was a Metzora. So he had to live off the reservation, literally and figuratively. He was marginalized, but Yotam made sure to protect his father's honor, even when who would have cared if he had just said, I'm the king now because my father's incapacitated. No, he kept his father code. So therefore, that's Ben Yechaved Av, and he was a great tzaddik. He was an anav, according to Rabbeinu Chanano. He didn't ever get his appropriate reward. Okay, again, I said before, I say again, the questions are better than the answers, maybe, but this is the Gemara that we have. You don't like Rashi, you can go with Rabbeinu Chanano. I think Rashi, living at the time in a place that he did, is certainly aware of the possibility of the danger. But I say, just on the level of pshat in the Gemara, to the level that I understand it, Rashbi said, I could have, but I didn't. Why not? If you can, why don't you? Because people should stand on their own 2 feet and be responsible for their actions, and not to have someone show up on the scene and announce, even though it was not true about that person, but that person could announce, I'm so amazing that I'm going to die for all the sins before and after as well, and everybody's off the hook for all time. In other words, the Judah, to come full circle to what you raised, which I was possibly going to gloss over to get to the halachic part again, but since you brought it up, can't, just forget about it. This is the Masa Listor of the claims that no doubt were going around at the same time by somebody else. So there is a kernel, there's a nugget here that is correct. There could be such a person. It happened not to be that person. And the person that we had, so to speak, on our side, Rashbi, said, but I didn't do it. I could have, but I didn't. In the Rashi reading, again, Ben Chanano, who lives in Karun in North Africa, so he doesn't deal with the same problems that Rashi does. So maybe you don't have to address the same way. Maybe it's a different Masorah. I don't know. Let's keep going, because if you're not confused enough, there's 2 more or 3 more members, and then we'll be back to halacha. So I'm trying to speed through it a little bit. Okay. So another one, right? V'amar Chizkiya Amar Rabbi Yirmiyah. I am about halfway down in the narrow lines, maybe a third to a halfway down. The first 2 words on the line is ad sofo. So now, v'amar Chizkiya Amar Rabbi Yirmiyah mishum bar Yochai ra'iti b'nei aliyah v'hein mu'atin. I saw people who are on a high level spiritually. There are very few of them. Okay, Rashi here tells us ro'ani lefi ma'aseh abriot shebnei aliyah kat hamakablim pnei shechina mu'atin heim. The number of people who are on a high level, what is bnei aliyah? Lashon la'alot, they're on a high level. Those are people who are makabel pnei shechina. They can receive the divine presence. Remember, Rashbi lives after the Churban. Rashbi is alive in the 130s. Yeah, plus minus, right? And the base of Mikdash was destroyed in 70. So it's 6 decades plus minus after. It's a very low time. Rome is still going to be, they don't know, but we know for centuries, going to still be there.
Time of the destruction of the Jewish people.
Yeah, I'm saying Haruge Beitar is just before this. So Haruge Beitar is between 135 and 138 during the Hadrianic persecutions. So, okay. Says there are very few people who can call Pnei Shechina. Okay. Im Elef Hain, Ani Ubni Mehen. There are 1,000, so me and my son are among them. Im Mehen, Ani Ubni Mehen. Me and my son are among them. Im Shnayim Hain, Ani Ubni Hain. So if there are only 2, it's us.
Everybody else is out of the picture.
Now, was he saying we're so amazing? Was he saying, look, I had a Gilu Elio. I was in a cave for 13 years. I'm telling you, the Rebbe Shalom told me this. There may be other people, but it seems to say also we don't know who those people are. How lonely was it for Rabbi Shimon and Rabbi Lazar? He comes out and he says, maybe there's 1,000, maybe there's 100, but if there are only 2, we're it. I mean, on one level, you think, wow, where's the Yanivut? And that is a question. But on another level, it's like, what is the loneliness? It may just be the 2 of us. Now, why are we talking about people? Yeah, and why is it these 2 people are Makal Pnei Shechina? Because no Beit HaMikdash. So now the Shechina can only be Shoreh on people. I mean, it is in some way. Huh? Yeah, by chain, right? Second Temple's destroyed in 70. The Bar Kokhba revolt is 132 to 135. It's crushed, unfortunately, and there's 3 years of persecutions after with a lot of different decrees against Klal Yisrael in general. The 10 martyrs are in those 3 years, different times, but so a lot of terrible things. And Rashbi is before Rabbi Akiva, I don't know how many years before, but after he loses 24,000 students, he gives 5 students smicha. He goes to the south and he gives them smicha, and they become the main lines, essentially, not the only, but the main lines of the Torah of Rabbi Akiva, which was the Torah of Rabbi Eliezer and Rabbi Yeshua, and it comes down the line. Okay, so this is just the 2 of us. The Gemara asks, are there really so few, possibly 1,000, 100, 2, right? Rava timne sare alfe dara hava the kame kutshabrichu. There are 18,000 rows who stand before the Ribbono Shel Olam, before Kutshabrichu. Shenamar, as the pasuk says in Yechezkel, Saviv Shmona Asar Elef. Around something, around him, around something. If you look at Rashi, Rashi says Saviv Shmona Asar Elef. Sefer Dikra, the end of the pasuk is Hashem Shama. God is there, right? Around the 18,000, God is there. The Afal Gav the Yerushalayim Shalati Lavoktiv Kra, even though the pasuk in Yechezkel is actually referencing the Beit Hamikdash Hashlishi in Yerushalayim in the future. Darshin and Lei Nami Lahachi. It also is explained in this way. Demakum Shishchina Shama Sovinoto Shmona Asar Elef. Around the Shechina are 18,000. Vehemat Tzadikim Hanetunim Lifnim Imalachei Ashari. These are the 18,000 Tzadikim who are inside the inner ring, even closer in the Malachei Ashari, as it says. Ka'et Yamer LiYaakov LiYisrael Ma Pa'al El VeOmer LiYoshim Lifnei Hashem Yesachra or Schora. I don't know the pasuk. VeOmer Vayu Einecha Ro'ot Et Morecha. All these psukim are supposedly going in the direction of showing that there are 18,000 tzaddikim who are in the presence of Hashem. I don't know what this means any more than you do. You just read it and whatever it means, it's some number. And they're darshaning this number, right? So the Gemara says, no, lo kashya. No, it's not a question. When the Rashbi spoke, he was talking about those who could see with a clear looking glass, essentially. Right? The 18,000 are ones who can see things, but they have more of a barrier. What they see is occluded. They see like through more of a curtain of some sort. So, and this is all imagery, of course. The Rashi says aspaklaria is a mechitza shechotzetzet b'neim l'shchina. Meira is kamar ezu shiroinba, like a something you could look through. You could see it in it. V'yesh tzadikim she'ein meira lahem kol kach v'nicholim l'rot mamash. Can't actually see totally. Could see somewhat. So, in other words, there's always in the ranks 18,000 who could see something. Now, what is that something? Ani lo yodea. I'm pointing out this is all after the time of Nevuah. There's no more Nevuah for hundreds of years already. And now there's no more Mikdash. and now there are very few Gedolei Torah, right? So Rashbi just wants you to know, like, there's still someone carrying the mantle. It's lonely, but what are you going to do? And but then the Gemara says, well, what are the 18,000? Well, they're not on the same madrega, but they're out there. They're out there. And now we come to the famous line that, again, you could tell people, impress your friends. This is the source in Nigle for the concept of the Lamed Vav Tzadikim. Here it is. So the Gemara says, that people who can see clearly, can have a clear vision. Again, it doesn't mean literally, because there's no such thing as seeing Hashem, but there's a clearest vision possible of seeing what's going on. Are there so few that it's 1,000, 100, or even 2? There, we have a Kabbalah, a received tradition, basically, is what he's saying. He didn't make this up. A received tradition that the world never has fewer than 36 tzaddikim that receive the divine presence each and every day. Shenamar, as the pasuk says in Tehillim, Ashrei kol choche lo. What is lo? Lamed vav begematria, plaltin v'shita havu. Right? So it's 36. So it's 36. That's the minimum that are on the highest level. So how could a Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai say, but maybe only 2? So lo kasha. Again, I don't understand what I'm reading, but I'm reading it to you nonetheless. Hada aili bebar, hada aili below bar. What is bar? Permission. Bebar birashut, says Rashi. The aili below bar. Below rashut mu'atim hein. That might just be the 2 of us. Uvahanu ka'amar ani ubani behem. Don't forget, unlike other tzaddikim, we have the record of Rashbi and his son. They spent 13 years in some mystical setup. We don't know what's going on. They're in a cave. I mean, the Gemara and Shabbat, Daf Lam, it does tell you, but it's very hard to understand what's going on. They're taking off their clothes. They're up to here in sand. They're learning the Gilul Yo going on. Open the Zohar Kadosh, or what's going on over there. There's a lot of mystical things happening. So they are saying we didn't have to ask permission. Meaning, as some of them Mefarshim point out, it's like they lived in the palace for a period of time. They could come and go as they please, as opposed to ministers who have to make appointments. They're like in the family some way. Quotation marks, but team. This is obviously quite amazing. It's saying this is the 36 tzaddikim. This is the source in Nigle. In Nistar, there's a lot. Not that I know anything about Nistar. In Chassidut, it quotes often. So Lamed Vav Tzaddikim. This is the source in Shas. This is the source in Shas. There's something else to say about this, which is going to also be the lead-in to the next Gemara that we're going to learn, which is on the Yom Tov of Sukkot. So goes my theory. We're entitled and in fact commanded to build a structure which Chazal in Nigla tell us again and again is associated with Hashrat Hashchina, Chal Shem Shemaim ala Sukka, right? The height of it's all different things with the Aron Kodesh. We just saw the Gemara with maybe the Derech Latan applies to the walls. There's a lot of expansion of Kedusha, you could say, outside the precincts of this location of the Mikdash itself. And unlike other Yom Tovim, there is a certain connection with nature. I mean, quite literally, you're holding 4 pieces of nature, and we're waving them, and we're involved with them. We're like raising up here, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, you made these things, we raise them up to you. I mean, it's mitzvahs in the Torah, but you start understanding some of the ideas of it. Now, why to make something out of it? Here's a little section, which on the face of it, what's it doing in Gemara Sukkah, page 45b? Amar Rabbi Yirmi Mishum B'Shim Bayochai. So here's 4 other things also. But the idea that here, in the absence of a mikdash, where's the Shechina going to be shora? Bilvavi Mishkan Evne, to wit, from the Sefer Charedim. That's what's going on over here a little bit, yeah? I'm not suggesting these people had the Kedusha of a mikdash. The point is they're Makabel Pnei Shechina, just like what happened in the mikdash. They're Makabel Pnei Shechina every day. The Shechina shora and these great tzaddikim are holding the whole generation up, okay? With that comes an ability, which is also a liability, potentially, which is a greater connection to the world at large as part of the Bria, the connection of creation, which is itself, when we think about it, and we can even think in very prosaic scientific terms, is all in motion. It is, in a certain sense, depending on how we define it, alive. Now, what do I mean by this? We're taking these objects, they're not connected to the ground anymore. Bonus Shalom, we're making them dance. We're taking these things, we cut off some branches from the tree, we're throwing it up on the top. We got a space now. The whole space is a place of encounter with the Kadosh Baruch Hu in a certain way, right? Keneged Anei HaKavod. according to many. There's a lot of imagery here. I don't give you a whole hashkafish here, but just since we're here already, it's like, I think it's very important. When you get to the next Gemara, it's a very strange phenomenon that anyone should be talking to an object that's inanimate and giving it thanks. I mean, that's what happens. We thank Hashem, then we thank the Mizbeach. And the Gemara itself recoils in horror that this could be happening. But the Mishnah describes that they would speak to the Hashem and they speak to me. So look in the next Gemara, and that's what it describes. Bishat p'tiratan mayin omrim. What did they say? Remember what we saw in the Gemara? Do you remember the Gemara, the Mishnah, excuse me, on 45a, which probably, according to many, the Haggadah Bach quotes it, and others say this section was not supposed to be here. It's really from the Gemara, but it was put back here in the Mishnah instead by copyists. It ended up being in the Mishnah. What did it say? Bishat p'tiratan mayin omrim. When they would leave the Mizbeach after they went around 7 times on Hoshana Rabbah, what did they say? They talked to the Mizbeach. Yofi lach Mizbeach. Yofi lach Mizbeach. Rabbi Lazar says, they say, Omer lika ulecha Mizbeach. They're talking to God and they're talking to Mizbeach. Talking to Hashem and talking to Mizbeach. To an inanimate object. But the connection that we have is like almost like a blurring of lines that's going on Sukkot that you don't find in other Yom Tovim. And that blurring is that the Bria itself is alive and we're engaged with it, etc. But the Gemara itself says, you're putting together the same Hashem with an object and you're giving them both thanks? Nothing's on a par with the Kadosh Baruch. How could there be a statement like that? You follow? It's like, how are you elevating something up? That's the Gemara right here. You're putting these two things together. V'tanya, didn't we learn in a practical? If you're going to equate two things by partnering Hashem and something else, whatever it is, you should be uprooted from the world. Bilti la Hashem levado, right? So this pasuk that we know from Mishpatim, Zover la Elohim Yachoram, Bilti la Hashem levado, right? So if you're going to sacrifice to a Lord, you should be destroyed. It's only to Hashem himself. Yeah. Some of the Meforshim point out that's why in Sefer Vayikra, not one korban ever was given to HaKadosh Baruch Hu b'shem Elokim, always b'shem Havaya. Why? Because the Shem Elokim is the, what should I say? Is the word in English that would be the Lord. So the Torah itself, at certain times, refers to Elohim as a Lord, like a house of lords, like a magistrate, like a leader. Yeah, but Yud Kei Vav Kei, the Shem Yud Kei Vav Kei is the proper name, so to speak, of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So I think the Mashal Chacham makes this point. So in Sefer Vayikra, all the korbanot are only to by the Hashem U'Shalemor. It never says the Shem Elokim. Why is it missing? So Chokrim and heretics have their own idea. The Mashal Chacham says it's obvious why. Look at this pasuk in Parashat Mishpatim. Zover leElohim Yachoram, which could be interpreted in English as those who sacrifice to the lords, but also means if you're going to sacrifice the certain way to the Shem Elokim, that's a big mistake because that it's ambiguous. So the pasuk is marshaled here. So the Gemara says, "No, hachika amar leka anachnu modim ulecha anu mishabchim." We're thanking God, but we're praising you. You're still talking to the Mizbech. Leka anachnu modim ulecha anu mekalsin, and we give you sort of superlatives of some sort. Right? Is that our chime? We're done, or you're getting called? Okay. So you understand the idea? You can say it. You just can't put Hashem's name together with something else. What didn't the Gemara reject? The idea that on Sukkot there's some kind of a dialogue with inanimate objects. Now, again, what? Right. The point is we see everything as we understand it. The world is alive. Yeah. So there's another dialogue going on. What is it? It's also. Yeah. It's that. Again, you shouldn't misunderstand what I'm saying. The point is, on the Yom Tov of Sukkot, the Kedusha in a certain way is moving outward. People are going to come to the Ben Simcha Beit Shoeva. We're not up to that daf yet. We're going to get there. Coming attractions. They were Shoev. What is Shoeva? One is they were taking the water. The other one is Shoevin Ruach HaKodesh. People would come to draw their divine inspiration. How come? Because this is Sukkot. The presence of Hakadosh Baruch Hu, right? And that's why Sukkot is going to be the time when the whole world is going to come. But it's not just the Idon in Alamayim. The point is, it's also Kibeti Beit for the Cholamim. It's the Navi Zechariah discussing what's going to be. Sukkot is going to be the festival for all nations, right? Why? The Kedusha is out there more so. And we're more aware of the presence of a Kadosh Baruch Hu, in the world, in the Bria, etc. So if you think of it like that, oh, now Daf Mem Hey, it's not just a loose thing. Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai said that, and he said that. They're all somehow about where is the Shechina Shora in a world that is bereft of a Mikdash and is bereft of, even in their case, of a Yerushalayim. It's not the Kedusha went away. It's can't access it. Where else do we find it? Oh, these great people, whatever it is. So then the idea, going back to the Mikdash, of even dancing on the edge of being Mishatev Shem Shemayim, something else. The Gemara says, no, I didn't mean literally they said that. They said, we thank Hashem, we acknowledge what Hashem has done, and we also praise you, the Mizbeach. It's an interesting idea. You don't find anyone talking to their matzah or the mezuzah or something like that, right? You shouldn't be. If you are, you shouldn't be. But I'm just saying. But the Mishnah and the Gemara here are describing that is what they did on the Hoshana Rabbah. That's what they did. Yeah, you understand? Yeah. Now, and that also explains, by the way, this very strange line that we had in Mem Hamid Aleph. It didn't. We our eyes went wide. We know the line very well, but we had Rabbi Yehuda saying, "Aniva ho Hoshiana." What's the merit? Me and God save us. But that's the idea, right? We saw in Tosfot. Tosfot had the idea ani v'hu, I and he, and v'hu asur bazikim ani b'toch hagolav v'hu asur bazikim kiviyachol hu ba'atzmo v'hainu hoshana sheyoshia le'atzmo. Tosfot. I just quoted you verbatim from Tosfot. And Kamakamach, I said it in the Hoshana Rabbah, so translate a second time. He was in trouble. Just worthy of consideration. Okay, we hit the 45-minute mark, and I have to do a chavruta with a guy at 8:30. So I'm going to stop here just as we're getting to the halacha part. I'm sorry. So next week, God willing, let's say we're going to learn 7:30 again. So we do 7:30. Does it make sense? Okay, 7:30 next week. 7:30, and I'll try to get into announcements accurately this time next time. And look forward. We'll pick up Mem Hamid Bet with the halachic piece now. Back to halacha about well, you'll see. Ravat, Albin, etc. Okay.